that 7'2" wingspan, that athletic ability, that leaping ability has Ryan Dunn entering the NBA draft. We'll talk Ryan Dunn with Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, on the Jerry and Jerry Show, right after an interview with Will Driscoll, the executive director of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Judah Wickower is the director and producer. If you can go to the studio camera, welcome the star of our show, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, and then weave Will Driscoll into the mix. Hootie, quite a guest we have on Skype this morning.
It's a joy for me to welcome Will. He's the executive director of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and every time I see him, I know I light up with a smile because he's such a positive guy, and he does such great work for the Hall of Fame, and he's really made a difference in that organization. He's trying to spread it all over the state. There was a feeling for years that it was just located and focused more, I guess, on the Tidewater area of the state. And Will has done a great job in making it a very inclusive organization for the entire state of Virginia, and it's something to be really proud of. He is a hardworking guy and driven man. I'll tell you, I've known him for more than a year, and every time I'm around him, I just feel energized about with his positivity and his drive. And Will, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and I'll have to bring you on as my PR person. I love that intro. Thank you so much. You're happy to be here.
More than deserved, and I think anybody that's had contact with you would confirm that analysis. And I know this is a special week for you. The Virginia Sports Hall of Fame will have its 51st class this coming Saturday in Henrico. I'll get you to give us the details in a moment. And it's a fun-filled weekend. I was part of the festivities last year. I was so fortunate and blessed. Gosh, what a great weekend it is for anybody involved. I was treated like a king, as were the other inductees, and it's a moment in my life that I'll never forget. It was definitely the highlight of my career, and such a blessing. And Will is right in the middle of it. Just tell us, Will, a little bit about this weekend's festivities, and if anyone is interested. You may be sold out, I'm not sure.
Well, so the one benefit to moving it this year, so for those who don't know, this is actually the first time we'll be hosting the annual induction events outside of Hampton Roads. Our home is still in Hampton Roads. We love our home here in Hampton Roads. It's where we've been based for over 50 years. But to your point, as you mentioned earlier, we've been very focused on expanding our reach, expanding our visibility, expanding awareness, increasing engagement and outreach. And so this year's 2024 induction events will be hosted in Henrico County at the new Henrico Sports and Events Center that opened back in December. And so because of that, we don't have space limitations. Now, we're not at a 2,000 person event. We're not a 1,000 person event, but we're not sold out yet. Although ticket sales will stop tomorrow, because at some point our staff does have to get up to Henrico County from Virginia Beach. So we're going to stop our sales tomorrow, but we've been over the moon with with the response that we've received from not just the Central Virginia community, but really the Virginia sports community. Our class this year touches all corners of the state, and so we're seeing a lot of people that maybe haven't engaged with us in the past from the Northern Virginia area, from out in Southwest Central Virginia, out where you all are, that are going to be coming to this event because of their connections to the inductees. And it's just a really exciting time. It's very busy. It can be stressful sometimes when you're planning events, but this event is not about me. It's not about the hall. It's about the 9 inductees that we have going in, and we're just really thrilled to be able to welcome them, their families, and their supporters to Henrico County this Saturday. And as I mentioned, there are 2 events. We have our Breakfast with Champions, which is a very fun, kind of casual event. And then we have our reception and ceremony that evening, which is a bit more of the pomp and circumstance. Both events are open to the public. Tickets continue to be on sale through tomorrow, vasportshof.com. And they both provide different models of engagement for the sports fan. So you're not forced to sit through the 10 speeches if that's not what you want to do. If you want to come and meet the inductees and engage with them in a Q&A, that's the breakfast event. But we're just really excited about it. And like I said, for it being our first time in Central Virginia, the response we've seen has been very, very positive, and it justifies our decision to bring it to Central Virginia. And who knows what that might open up in the future as far as possibilities go.
Yeah, and as far as the Charlottesville area, the University of Virginia is well represented in this class with former athletic director Craig Littlepage will be one of the inductees. Also, Chris Long, the former All-American defensive end and NFL All-Pro, who resides here in Charlottesville, as does Mr. Littlepage, who we had on the show a few weeks ago. And Monica Wright, the great women's basketball player for Debbie Ryan's program back in the day, are the three local representatives going in. Tell us, Will, about the other 6 inductees that'll be going in this weekend.
Well, you mentioned the 3 UVA connections, and there's actually one more that Craig actually brought to my attention, and that's Jill Ellis. So Jill Ellis, before she became a head coach at the collegiate level and obviously went on to win 2 Women's World Cups with the U.S. Women's National Team, she was an assistant coach at UVA.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's right.
So there's another UVA connection there for you. But yeah, so Jill Ellis, she's from Northern Virginia, played soccer collegiately at William & Mary, and then went on to great success with the U.S. Women's National Team. Our Distinguished Virginian Award recipient this year, which is kind of our Sports and Philanthropy and Community Award, is going to go to Rick Jeffrey, who ran the Special Olympics Virginia for 22 years. And the impact he had, not just in the Richmond region where Special Olympics Virginia is based, but really across the state, it can't be measured. They supported 22,000 athletes annually, created so much access and opportunity to sports for people that probably had been overlooked prior to that. So his impact is immeasurable. You then have LaShawn Merritt, one of our great Olympic champions from Virginia. He's from Portsmouth, Virginia. 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 4 overall Olympic medals, 23 total medals in international competitions at the 400 and 4x400 meter relay, and 19 of those. Wow. LaShawn is definitely, yeah, exactly. That was the number that blew me away too. Is that when he competed, he typically won.
He did.
We then have Hal Nunley, a longtime head men's basketball coach at Randolph-Macon, and the Randolph-Macon basketball program. That's one that when you go back through the history books, you see that is a dominant program. They went from Coach Paul Webb, who was an inductee, to Coach Nunley, who's going to be an inductee. Mike Rhodes followed him, and now they've had even more success following Coach Mike Rhodes. So the Randolph-Macon basketball program is definitely not just a powerhouse here in Virginia, but a powerhouse nationally. Coach Nunley won 431 games, 24 seasons, 5-time Conference Coach of the Year, so definitely well-deserved. And what's been truly unique about Coach Nunley is this is a posthumous honor for him. So he passed away in 2004. But there's going to be over 100 former players in attendance for Coach Nunley's induction this weekend, which to me, that just shows you how special this recognition is to just the whole Yellow Jacket community. We then have 2 media members that are going in this year. The first is Dave Smith, longtime sports information director for Virginia Tech. We can set the rivalry aside. Dave Smith is about as well respected as they come in the sports information world, and truly well deserving of this honor. And then Paul Woody. 40 years with the Richmond News Leader, Richmond Times Dispatch, won Virginia Press Association awards, Pro Football Writers Association awards, covered any and everything in sports as you did, Jerry, as you've done for much of your career. And Paul definitely has the respect of pretty much everybody he's come in contact with. So it's just a class that really is unique and touches, as I mentioned, all corners of the state. We have Hampton Roads, we have Northern Virginia, we have Central Virginia, we have Southwest. And it's just great to see all of these people coming to our events to celebrate the sports history that we have in Virginia. And so we're very excited about it. The class is very excited, and I can't wait till Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited for Paul Woody, a longtime colleague of mine, and we worked for the same company, so to speak, for a long time. And he,
Media General?
Media General, he's a terrific guy and very deserving. And I grew up in the business with Dave Smith. In fact, his mentor at Virginia Tech, kind of when I was a pup in the business, kind of took me under his wing and taught me the ropes to some degree. A guy named Wendy Wisen, who's long gone, but so Dave and I have been friends for decades, and so happy for him as well. No question about it.
Questions coming in for you here, Will. Let's throw this to you. We'd love to get some behind-the-scenes stories for you. How about the star of our show, Hootie Ratcliffe? Let's talk about last year. A lot of people don't realize this. Hootie you were sick as a dog during the Hall of Fame last year.
I was.
Talk to us about what went into the experience and the honor and the selection process of the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer sitting across from me.
Well, I'll never forget the phone call I got from Will that told me that I had been elected, and I was completely speechless, which, if you know me, that's really hard to do, but I was blown away, and a moment I'll never forget. And yeah, I had a medical problem that I wasn't aware of leading up to the event, and I was having a hard time breathing, actually, and didn't realize that I had some fluid on my lungs, and so I was struggling that entire weekend to I didn't have much energy. I remember my girlfriend and I walked from the hotel down to the place they have the exhibit near the induction, near the site of the induction, and where they had an exhibit of some of your, I guess, some of the things you've accomplished in your career. And I walked over there and walked back with her and my daughter and some of my grandchildren. And I said, I don't know if I can make this. But we got back, and I manned up, and we went to the ceremony, and it was fantastic. I delivered my speech. I didn't win my bet. I did break down emotionally a little bit at a couple of moments, which I didn't feel so bad when Ryan Zimmerman did the same thing after me, so I felt pretty good about that. But it was great having so many friends and family there, and Jeff Motley, a dear friend and like a brother to me, who's vice president of Las Vegas Speedway, flew in for the event, and it's great to see him. And it's just a glorious weekend, so well attended and appreciative crowds, very interactive crowds for the. You have a little situation, a little reception there before the event where people can mingle with the inductees and past inductees. The breakfast is great. People get to ask some questions to all the inductees, and it's just it meant the world to me. It was just sort of the highlight of my career. It just made me feel like that I had all those years of deadlines and driving endless hours into the night and stuff like that was well worth it. So it was a weekend I'll never forget, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone who went in with me, along with we had a great class, including Jimmy Laycock and Sean Moore and Ryan Zimmerman and many others. It was just unforgettable.
I'll throw this to you, Will. Weave us through the process of selecting media and sports information directors for, say, like athletes and coaches who have, tangible production on a hardwood, a soccer pitch, a gridiron, for, say, media and sports information directors where perhaps there's not as much, hardware to go by.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will, the decision was made well before my time with the Hall. So I've been with the Hall now for 7 years, been in this role for 5. And I believe the decision to start including media was made in the mid-90s. And it's an important one. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a former broadcaster myself in some small markets, nowhere near here. But media is a huge component to sports. And so how we go through the selection process is, even with the athletes, coaches, and others, we have categories that we kind of sort the nominations through. So the media members are going up against other media nominations. Same with sports information; they're in that media bucket. We then have our professional athletes, but that's really focused on athletes that are from Virginia or born in Virginia, have strong connections to Virginia, that go on to professional success, but that's kind of more focused on the big sports, so football, basketball, baseball. We then have another one for the international sports, the Olympic sports, because comparing somebody's career on the track or in the pool or gymnastics is not the same as NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball. We then have a collegiate category, because one of the things that's very important to us at the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame are the colleges and universities. We don't have those top-level professional sports. We have great professional franchises at the minor league levels, but we don't have the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. So the colleges and universities, all 37 NCAA-sanctioned programs, Division 1, 2, and 3, they need to know that we see the great athletes and coaches that have come from those schools. And then we have our Veterans Committee, which is anyone over the age of 55. So we have all of these buckets that our honors court can pull from. So we have our screening committee, which reviews all open nominations, which we have over 100 right now. And then they pass on the 30 to 40 best that they deem that year the best to the honors court committee, which is made up of past inductees, sports professionals in Virginia, board members of the Hall of Fame. And we meet the first weekend in November to select the class. And so we're reviewing all of these nominations, and there can be a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. But I'm always very pleased with how we get through the meeting and we come out with the class that we do, because it's representative of Virginia, touches multiple sports. We've represented 22 individual sports throughout our history, and that would probably be more if we didn't lump track and field as one. So 22 individual sports, 23 of those 37 colleges I mentioned have been represented with induction into the Hall at some point. And so it's a very diverse group that hopefully is selecting a diverse group of inductees as well. But nominations are submitted year-round. To be considered for the next class, though, they need to be in by September 1st. And then once a nomination is submitted, it has a 5-year lifespan. And if it doesn't get selected in those 5 years, it expires, but it can easily be renominated to start that 5-year timeline again.
Fantastic insight. How about an inductee of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame that had the biggest, I don't want to call it pop in circumstance, but the biggest hoopla surrounding him or her? Either attendance or coverage or attention, all the above, Will.
So, it's funny because it'll probably be a name that doesn't necessarily, it won't be a name you expect. Yes, last year we had Ryan Zimmerman and D'Angelo Hall, two great athletes from Virginia. They went to Virginia colleges, and then they had great professional success not too far from here, up in the Washington, D.C. area. But a few years ago, Coach Sonny Allen, the legendary Sonny Allen, who spent 10 years at Old Dominion University, it was a posthumous honor for him as well. He had passed away a year prior to being selected for the induction, but the family was so moved by his selection to the Hall that they helped bring almost 75 people to the event. And so we dubbed them Allen's Army. And, it's funny, those are the ones that you just kind of, that they come in off the radar, but then they bring the people because it is such a meaningful moment to their family. Last year, Sean Moore, I think he brought the entire city of Martinsville with him to Virginia Beach. Jerry can vouch for that.
That's true, yeah.
I think the entire city of Martinsville was there. Bob Ratans from Roanoke College had 50 people, some of them former teammates on the Roanoke Lacrosse, some of them just friends. Bob is the owner of Mac and Bob's, so they're just supporters of his business that came all the way from Roanoke and Salem to support his induction. So, yes, the Heath Millers of the world, the Ryan Zimmermans, they draw the attention from a media standpoint, but sometimes it's people that you might not think that are actually bringing the crowd. And from an event planning standpoint, we love people, we love butts in seats.
How about the time that goes into this, Will, for you and the staff? How long have you guys been planning? What's the workload, and what's how does it intensify as we get closer to showtime?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's pretty much a year-round planning procedure. But I will say, following the induction, we usually take a couple months to focus on some other events that we have. But then once we get to that September 1st deadline for nominations, that's when we really start to dial it back in. We have charitable golf tournaments, one at Wintergreen actually in June, and then we have one in Virginia Beach here in September. But once we get past that, we really get into induction mode. Our committees will start meeting in September. The Honors Court meets the first week of November. And in between the Honors Court vote and the announcement, which I typically like to do the Monday after Thanksgiving, it's on me to get in touch with the inductees who are selected, but also make sure that they can attend the event in April. Because, to use the buzzword of the day, NIL, name, image, and likeness, if we put your name, image, and likeness on a flyer, people are going to expect you to be there. And so we want to make sure that if we have 9 people going in, we do our best to have all 9 of those people there, if they can be there. We do have a deferral process. D'Angelo Hall, for instance, was actually selected as part of the class of 2020. So I made the phone call to D'Angelo in November 2019, but because he was working for the NFL Network at the time, the induction conflicted with the NFL draft, so he wouldn't be able to get off. Now, the 2020 induction was ended up canceled, pushed, but D'Angelo ended up going in class of 2023 because that was the date that ended up working for him. So sometimes there are things that go on behind the scenes that the only people who know are me, the inductee, and the Honors Court. But once we make that class announcement at the end of November, it's really at that point, how do we stay in the public consciousness for the next 5 months? Because you have the announcement at the end of November and you have our events towards the end of April. And we want to make sure that people are talking about the hall. We want to make sure that they're learning about our inductees. Last year, for instance, we know that Jerry is a multiple-time winner of the Virginia Sports Writer of the Year, but we really tried to highlight through social media and through other media outlets a lot of the other work that he did. We talked a lot about his golf. We use our platform to talk about what the inductees have done beyond, just kind of the headline awards and recognitions. And so over that 5-month period, we just continue to stay in the public consciousness to hopefully drive more interests, more engagement, more ticket sales, more sponsorships. But then once we get to that month, the induction month, it's all event planning mode. It's seating charts. It's getting hotel rooms situated. It's all sorts of follow-ups and just hounding sponsors. Send us your names. Send us your attendee names. But it's a fun process. I mean, I would be lying if I said it wasn't stressful. But we have a pretty good group in place that helps us put all of this together. And this year, the only wrinkle is because it's our first time in Henrico, everything is new to us. Whereas when it's in Virginia Beach, I know A through Z. I keep getting stuck on about RSTUV right now. So it'll all come together. I keep saying control the controllables, and as long as you control what you can control, everything will turn out all right.
How do you want to see the brand, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and your efforts and the recognition? What are some of the goals? How do you want to see it evolve as you move forward? You're a goal-oriented guy. We all are here on this talk show, and you guys are doing a hell of a job here. But what's on the short list for taking it to the next level?
So that's another great question. And for those who don't know, the Hall used to have a large-scale physical museum presence in Portsmouth, Virginia. We were founded in Portsmouth back in the idea for a Hall of Fame was first broached in the late 60s. The first class was inducted in 1972. But from that point through 2017, we had a physical presence. It started small, 2,000 square feet, grew to 5,000, 10,000, and then ultimately the Hall of Fame and Museum, which was 32,000 square feet in downtown Portsmouth. Multiple reasons, relationships and support began to dry up, so the museum was no longer feasible, but the board of directors at the time in 2017, understood that the brand of the Hall of Fame was much bigger than four walls and a roof. And so that's actually where I came on. I came on, I don't like to say because the museum closed, but that's when my story with the Hall started. And so we really started to do more events. We started to create more community initiatives around sports. Our core values, we revamped them about a year ago. They're recognition, impact, and integrity. Recognition is the induction. Recognition are the exhibits. Recognition is how we highlight our inductees and tell their story, celebrating sports in Virginia. But impact, to me, is probably one of the most important ones, because while we honor the best of the best, what are we doing to provide access, opportunity, highlight the benefits of sports participation at the youth level? So we've increased our community initiatives. We've increased our scholarships. We created a sports and mental wellness initiative here in Hampton Roads. And I want to see those continue to grow. Not just those two initiatives, but I want to start adding more to that. But the biggest thing to me is the idea is we're not necessarily going back to a museum, but the exhibits do still play a very big role in what we do. So the question that I broached to my board probably right around, during the pandemic, as we had some time to think, was if we're the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, what have we done to really justify our role as the official Hall of Fame for Virginia? What incentive, what outreach have we done outside of Hampton Roads? And the answer was not much to that point. So we came up with the idea that instead of going back to a large-scale museum, let's break the state into regions and figure out how we can tap into each one of these regions. We know Hampton Roads. We've been in Hampton Roads for years. But as much as we love as much as Hampton Roads people love the Hampton Roads inductees, so does Central Virginia, so does Southwest Virginia, so does Northern Virginia. So we have to find ways to take the Hall to them. And luckily, we got our first partner to help us do that in Central Virginia with the Henrico Sports and Entertainment Authority. I mentioned we're hosting this year's events at the Sports and Event Center. Well, we also now have a physical exhibit presence there that is heavily focused on the inductees from Central Virginia. So the counties from Central Virginia go from about New Kent out through Charlottesville. So much of the exhibit presence that you see there is going to be focused on Central Virginia inductees. I would love to see that replicated in Southwest Virginia, maybe even Southside, Northern Virginia, and then next thing you know, you have a statewide network of exhibits that's celebrating the inductees where they're from. And I never want to say that an inductee is more important in this place or that place, but they're more important in their hometowns. They're more important with the schools that they attended. And so we just want to really find ways to continue to make those connections. And especially in a venue like the Sports and Event Center, that's a sports crowd that's coming in there. Whether they're coming in for a tournament, whether they're coming in to attend an event, they have an interest in sports. And now they might also be learning something that, oh, I didn't know Ralph Sampson was from Harrisonburg. I didn't know Moses Malone was from Petersburg. So they're learning about the Hall, and hopefully maybe they take that next step to learn more about us as an organization. So really creating a statewide approach is the long-term goal. And I say long-term because it took us a couple years to get this going with Henrico County, but I'm hoping that now people are seeing it more as, instead of an idea, they actually see it now as an activation, and that's the most important thing.
I think it's genius. I think it's absolutely genius because your inductees become ambassadors and evangelists for the Hall of Fame. They each have their own micro following across the Commonwealth, across the region, across the country. And as the inductees get attention from the Hall of Fame, that's going to only trickle over to what you guys are doing. I think it's a fantastic plan. I'll throw this to you. We are literally doing a show with you now, Will, that's broadcasted on all social platforms, all podcasting platforms, and folks in a handful of states are watching you and Hootie and I on the program. How does technology, digital, and social media come into your efforts with raising recognition for the brand profile that is the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame?
It's massive, and I'll start that off with, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so we're not yes, we do a decent job of fundraising, but we don't have the biggest staff in the world. In fact, we have a very small staff, where our resources are limited. So what we do, I always say, let's do as much as we can with as little as we can, and then we'll find a way to hopefully add to that. So social media, especially in my time, has been a huge asset to us because it allows us to engage with people where they are, as opposed to when the museum was open, it was always come to us, and which there's nothing wrong with that because that's the approach of a building. You have to get people in the door. But our first step to do that was, okay, let's look at our social media. How can we utilize this to engage our audience? Well, we created our own podcast platform, the Hall Call podcast. It started out as just audio. It's now transitioned to video and audio. And what that does is, our most recent episode was with Chris Long, incoming inductee. You don't have to be in person at an event to engage with this content. You can go watch the content, which I'm biased, but I thought it was a great interview. Chris is a great person to talk to. But you create content for people, you create initiatives for people, and that shows them that you care about them. As opposed to when you're always saying come to us, it tends to be a one-way conversation. I mentioned we increased our scholarship awards. Our scholarship awards are open to all seniors attending a high school in Virginia. 2 of this year's recipients were from Carroll County and Galax County, which is about 5 hours west of Virginia Beach. So the reach for that is growing. Our nominations over the last 5 years have increased from 40 to over 140. And with that, the scholarship awards have increased as well. So we're really utilizing the digital mediums to tell our story. Sometimes it's as simple as we post something about today's an inductee's birthday. As simple as that, but it puts the Hall of Fame, it keeps us in the conversation on social media so that our followers and our supporters know that it's not always just about, hey, buy a ticket to an event. Hey, are you interested in a sponsorship? No, we want to tell you stories about the inductees. And you see fun engagement, like, oh, I didn't realize my birthday was the same day as inductee XYZ. And so you just got to keep finding those ways through the digital mediums that are available to you to make a difference. And we love it. We love being able to share our story, the stories of our inductees, the story of the Hall with as many people as possible.
Well, I'll tell you what, Will, we appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck on Saturday. I have no doubt it's going to go off flawlessly, and it's going to be a night and weekend to remember. We're grateful for the perspective. We look forward to future interviews, and it sounds like my esteemed colleague here, Hootie, is going to be in attendance this weekend.
Going to do my best. And before you go, if you want to plug your golf event at Wintergreen, in case you're looking for people to fill up your field, go ahead and give it a shot.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I know you've played in it, and you have the invite as always to play. But yeah, Thursday, June 13th, we host our Central Virginia Golf Tournament at Stony Creek at Wintergreen. There's plenty of information on our website. It's our Central Virginia Golf Tournament. Our presenting sponsor is Blue Ridge out in Waynesboro. They've been a great partner of ours for many, many years. And really, this was one of the first things that we did to start kind of creating that presence out there. And we get a lot of colleges and universities that play. We have a decent amount of inductees that come out and play. So it's really a fun day, as long as the weather's great. And again, control the controllables. I can't control the weather, so as long as we get everything else in place, it's turned out to be a good tournament. But it's Thursday, June 13th, Stony Creek at Wintergreen. It's a heck of a day. It's tons of fun, and I'd love to see some new faces out there as we continue to grow the Hall throughout the state.
Fantastic. Thank you, Will Driscoll. We appreciate your time.
See you, brother.
Thank you.
All right, absolutely. Will Driscoll, ladies and gentlemen. We got a 2-shot right now. Judah's going to come on screen and adjust the computer and Skype. Fantastic interview right there through a fantastic guy doing a lot of hard work, Hootie Ratcliffe.
Absolutely. Again, I can't tell you how valuable he has been to the Hall and growing its presence in the state of Virginia. And I'm very appreciative. I know everybody who's involved feels the same way about the work he's done.
Guys, thank you to Will Driscoll for joining us, and many of you tuning in for the breaking news that happened right before the Jerry and Jerry show launched or started this morning. Ryan Dunn enters the NBA draft. Hootie Ratcliffe, where do you want to begin?
Well, I can't say that I'm surprised, and it could be that he'll go in full force and take his chances and see what happens. He still could end up being a first-round draft choice, particularly now that he's entered the draft, and I'm sure will be invited to the combine and some other events to where he can show general managers and scouts and coaches his value. And again, he also, I don't know if he's what the situation is, but it could be like Reese Bigman, where he puts his toes in the water to see what kind of reaction he gets from those experts in the field as to whether he will be a first rounder or not.
Multiple platforms reporting that Ryan Dunn all in and will not maintain any college eligibility.
Well, if that's the case, yeah, then that settles it. Then that means he's gone. And again, I'm not surprised. Certainly, talking to some scouts that I know and just some college coaches I know, he has rare abilities and rare physical skill that you can't coach. It's just incredible leaping ability, rebounding, block shot ability, reaction time, reach, wingspan, timing. All those things are gifts from God, and certainly he comes from an athletic family. His brother's a major league pitcher, I think, still with the Cincinnati Reds, and has been certainly had a great influence on Ryan and trying to help him deal with all the things that have come at him the past year and a half. So I think he needs to work on his offensive end of the game, and I'm sure he will, because having talked to some scouts, they will draft off potential, knowing that he is a rare talent on the defensive end of the floor in the rebounding, and they feel like their coaching staffs are good enough to make him a better offensive player. So it sounds like he believes that he will be a first-round pick, which is guaranteed money and big money. So I wish him the best. I think he's a quality person. I've enjoyed knowing him the past couple of years, and he's just a quality human being. Comes from a great family, and one of my favorite stories about him is when Virginia offered him a scholarship, and he committed to Virginia, and then Tony Bennett realized, wow, we don't have a scholarship to give him. And so he had the unfortunate task of calling Ryan and his family and telling them that, I'm sorry, but we don't have a scholarship for you. And Ryan Dunn wanted to play for Tony Bennett and play at Virginia so badly that he and his family discussed it and called Tony back and said, would it be okay if he walks on the first year and we pay his own way? That's how badly he wanted to come and play at Virginia. So that's a rare quality in athletes these days you don't see very often.
Virginia basketball fans, it's bittersweet news. As folks that follow this team closely, we're excited for the potential for Ryan Dunn as an NBA pro with the comparisons to DeAndre Hunter. 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan, a man who can jump out of the gym, explosive ability, shot blocking ability, defensive ability, certainly has to refine the jump shot. I look at this roster, we got no front court returning players. You got Groves gone. You got Minor gone. You got Leon Bond in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You got Ryan Dunn now heading to the NBA draft. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is putting significant pressure on this Virginia coaching staff to hit the transfer portal hard, aggressively, quickly. They have front court players return. I mean, maybe can we call Tane Murray a front court player at small forward? Maybe
that would probably be a stretch.
that'd be a
but
stretch.
I guess the good news is that they have the Robinson kid who's 6'10", who redshirted last year and has spent a year in the system and practicing. I imagine he'll work hard this summer knowing he has opportunities to play. And then there's 6'9", the Kofi kid from the Seattle, Washington area, who a lot of the Pac-12 schools really wanted, and it was kind of a shock that he committed to Virginia. So he's a physical presence. He's a player who can face the basket and get the job done. He will add some physicality. They're working hard in the portal to bring in at least one more player. Now this opens up
Clearly,
another scholarship.
Yeah.
Joshua Jefferson, who was a starting 6'8" forward for St. Mary's out in California. He's a sophomore. Visited this past weekend. He has 2 more visits lined up to Iowa State and TCU, and canceled a visit to VCU while he was here. So Virginia is one of 3 schools that he's considering. He's a high-level contributor, a lockdown defender, had some decent offensive numbers, was a star in St. Mary's close win over Gonzaga in early February. He had 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists in that game. So he's solid. And then they're going to get a visit this Thursday and Friday from a new kid, Toby Akani, 6'8", kid from Illinois, Chicago, a school that I don't know a lot about, but he's a grad transfer, 7-foot wingspan with massive hands, averaged 11 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game, was all Missouri Valley Conference all defensive team this past season. He's being courted by UCLA, Wisconsin, Florida State, Clemson, Arkansas, West Virginia, and a handful of others. So 2 candidates to come in and fill that slot where Ryan Dunn has been a staple the past season.
This is pretty significant news, viewers and listeners. Ryan Dunn entering the NBA draft. You look at a basketball team that is now returning Isaac McNeely.
Right.
I mean, you got a point guard, Reese Beekman. He's not going to come back, although he has a COVID year. You got McNeely at 2. Your 3 is, to be determined. Maybe you see a Gertrude. Maybe you see McNeely play 3 with Bliss heading in the backcourt. Maybe Gertrude, some kind of mix in there. Maybe Rhodey, if he can find a jump shot. Your 4 and 5 have transferred. You do have the Buchanan coming back that's going to clearly get some big-time minutes now in the front court. I mean, from my standpoint, you're the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer. You're the pro here. From my standpoint, this really puts significant pressure on the coaching staff with the portal. This is a question I have for you. Did this catch the coaching staff off guard, Ryan Dunn turning pro?
I would guess probably not.
You think no?
I think Tony and them expected him to leave.
The reason I
asked
that
is too much money on the table.
I think. The reason I asked that is because there has not been a transfer portal commitment.
Yeah, and it's not because they're not trying.
Yeah. Because the deeper we get, the more the talent comes off the table.
Right. But, we have to also remember that guys are entering the portal every day. I check Twitter probably 30 or 40 times a day throughout the day and night, and there's hardly an hour goes by that somebody doesn't enter the transfer portal, sometimes multiple players. So they're coming in fast and furious from everywhere, including programs like Kentucky and Southern Cal and Arkansas, whose coaches are leaving and opening the door for more guys to exit their programs. So there's more guys flooding the market, so to speak. I've seen a bunch of ACC players this week jump into the portal as well. So I think there's a lot of guys out there that could fill that void. It's just it's coming at these coaches in waves, and I'm sure they're working daily with, I don't know what kind of support staff they have in terms of, I know they have a couple of guys who are in charge of recruiting and player development and research and all that stuff. So I'm sure they're working their fannies off trying to keep up with who's available and who might fit Virginia's style of play and who could fit academically, who will fit NIL-wise. There's a lot of things to consider, and who they can get on campus for a visit. And this past week was the first, the Jefferson kid was the first guy who has visited thus far. Akani will be the second. Now, there was another guy who was supposed to visit this past weekend, the Harvard point guard, who apparently is going to go to Georgetown instead. Rumors of a lot of NIL money thrown his way. So I think Virginia is just now delving seriously into the process of trying to get some of these guys on campus. I think they've been trying to weed out who's available and who might fit.
Ryan Dunn, if you're just tuning in, guys, has turned pro, and he, according to a couple of outlets, is not looking to consider a return to college, which leads you to believe that an agent signing is on the horizon, or he's just saying, "Look, I see the potential writing on the wall." You
can still
and come
these
back.
days you can have an agent and still be eligible.
Return. Yeah. Do you think how the season finished had anything to do with Ryan Dunn turning pro, or was the writing always on the wall?
I think as long as he was going to be a first-round choice, he was probably going to be gone because, again, that's a lot of money that you've got to weigh. The opportunity might not be there the following year if you have a bad year or if you get injured. So, again, a lot of these NBA teams draft off potential. So I felt like that as long as he was still going to be considered a first-round pick, not necessarily a lottery pick, but a first-round pick, that he was probably going to go. Even though I still think another year would make him a more complete player, but obviously in his mind that's not the important thing right now.
The Who's guys have 2 incoming first years signed in the class of 2024. If Reese Beekman leaves, Coach Bennett and his staff have 3 open scholarships.
Right.
The team clearly needs a veteran point guard and a post player that can score the basketball. So time will tell. We have a lot of potential on the roster with guys like Christian Bliss. But from an experience standpoint, your most experienced player is Isaac McNeely, and you're returning, I guess Rhodey saw some starters minutes, and Buchanan saw some starters minutes.
Right.
But really you're returning one true starter that played from start to finish this past campaign.
Yeah, and a bunch of other guys who had some starts and played some serious minutes. Rhodey, Tane Murray came on strong down the stretch. I think he's going to be a better player. I think Buchanan will bulk up physically in the off season and be more of a force there than he was. Gertrude, we've only begun to tap into how great he can possibly be.
Do you think Leon Bond transfers if he knows the Ryan Dunn news?
Yeah, I think he was going to go anyway.
You think he was? Because he was kind of a tweener in between a two guard's height but a front court player's game?
Yeah, I think he was kind of stuck in that mold because he just didn't have a jump shot. And that was tough for him. Whether these new guys that are 6'8" that are coming in, apparently they have somewhat of a jump shot. I don't know about Akani, but I know the Jefferson kid apparently does. I think both of them have made a decent amount of three-point shots. So I think should they get either one of those two guys, it'll be an upgrade in terms of Bond. Certainly neither one of those guys are the athlete that Ryan Dunn is, but they do have potential more offensive firepower than Dunn or Bond provided.
Other transfer news, Justin Taylor heads to Harrisonburg. Where
JMU,
he's gonna, JMU. The Syracuse wing, two guard, transferring from the Orange to the Dukes. He's a Charlottesville boy. Dot the I's and cross the T's on anything else basketball related. What you're following before we get to Saturday's spring game?
Yeah, the Malik Brown kid from Syracuse, from Culpeper, apparently is, from what we heard, is going to visit Duke this weekend. So I don't know if Virginia is on his radar or not. We haven't heard much out of his camp. But he's certainly a guy that I would think Virginia would be interested in if there's any interest from his part. But other than that, I know that they have reached out to probably 30 players in the portal. They're looking at a lot of different guards and a lot of forwards in hopes of shoring up the roster. And I think it'll probably heat up starting this weekend and until the end of till the portal closes.
Basketball news, guys, on the brain. Football certainly front and center with the spring game. You're going to be at Scott Stadium. Calandria takes a boatload of players to his house in Florida. We got two quarterbacks with experience, and Tony Elliott's got more expectations, or I should say a little bit of pressure, than perhaps any year he's had in Charlottesville so far.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool story that evolved yesterday in a Zoom conference with Tony Muskett and Anthony Calandria and Taylor Lamb, the quarterback's coach. And I guess Sedarian Harris, one of the wide receivers, had spilled the beans on that trip in a previous Zoom that Calandria had taken 13 teammates down to St. Pete, his hometown, and they arranged for like an 18-room bed and breakfast, or Airbnb, I guess, where they hung out for a week. Tony Elliott gave them a week off during spring break, and instead of just going to the beach and
play some football
and goofing off, it was more about football. They went down on in a bonding experience. They stayed at the house in St. Pete. They got up every morning and drove to Tampa and worked out at an indoor facility there from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Then drove back to St. Pete and enjoyed the day as college youngsters would do. They did everything together, worked out together, ate together, hung out together the entire week, and it was only skilled players. It was a bunch of the wide receivers, a couple of running backs, and a tight end. And sounds like that these guys had a blast, and that's an incredible way to build chemistry. It's something unique to our time, I think, in terms of college players. I know NFL guys have done that
Forever.
forever.
Yeah.
But this is certainly new in the day of NIL.
What are you going to be watching in the spring game? How much you take from the spring game, and which positions are you most focused on in the spring game?
I don't know how much you can take from a spring game. I've probably been to a million of them during my career, because coaches are going to be a little vanilla in most cases. Although last year Virginia threw it all over the lot, and we first saw Calandria, we saw how bold he was. We didn't really expect him to play that much as a true freshman, but we did see the arm and the potential and the brashness of his play in the spring game. You can see certain things. We saw. I spotted last year that Malik Washington was going to be an incredible addition to the team, because not only was he able to get open all the time, he wasn't involved that much in the return game, but the couple of returns he had, I saw the potential there for him to make an impact on the football team, and certainly he did. We'll be looking at both the quarterbacks to see how they've developed. Originally, we didn't think that Tony Muskett was going to be available in the spring because of the shoulder surgery he had in the offseason, but he overcame all those issues with incredible work in his rehab, and he said a lot of prayers to get back, and participated fully, I think, in the entire spring, got equal reps to Calandria. The big emphasis during the spring from that standpoint was for both quarterbacks to get better, to develop, and to get Calandria out of some of the bad habits that he has, but not take away his gunslinger mentality. You don't want to take that away from a quarterback, because it's a gift.
Absolutely.
As long as he can keep it under some kind of control and make better decisions. So it'll be interesting to see how both those guys have developed this spring. It'll be interesting to see the new wide receivers, Chris Tyree, Andre Green, some of the others, the freshmen, Cam Courtney, how they fit into the system. Where Kobe Pace is as a running back. They're a little thin, I think, at the running back spot. I don't know that we'll see much with the offensive line, because a lot of those guys, I think, missed the spring with recovering from surgeries and stuff. Same on the defense. I don't know how many of those guys will be available, but you can pick up little nuances here and there in the spring game, but I don't think you can get a massive amount of impactful information during a spring game.
Totally agree. This is one of the items I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching fan attendance.
That's usually about the same.
Right. Why I'm going to watch that is whether we're going to see any kind of excitement for the year to come, or if there's apathy setting in because of performance over the last handful of years. Saturday in Charlottesville in spring, there's a ton of stuff to do.
Yes.
There's a ton of spring sports. Obviously, all the things we like to do, breweries, wineries, hikes, restaurants. This weekend is the Tom Tom Festival in the downtown mall. So I'm curious to see what attendance is going to be like on Saturday at Scott Stadium. We're going to follow that closely. We're also talking baseball, lacrosse, the spring sports, as our eyes shift to perennial powers, Hootie Ratcliffe.
Yeah, the baseball team's coming off a great weekend in Louisville. I think they host Georgia Tech this weekend. I'm not sure. Georgia Tech's always a formidable opponent, and they're going to be playing a lot of meaningful series over the next month in a quest to get back to Omaha. And right now, Brian O'Connor has one of the most explosive offenses in college baseball. They're number one in the country in so many different offensive categories, and a fun team to watch. If you like run production and action, Disharoon Park is the place to be.
Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-game series against the Ramblin' Wreck. Will Driscoll was nice. You got a busy weekend yourself, my friend.
Yeah, I feel obligated to try to make it back to this year's ceremony. They like former inductees to attend if they can, and the fact that it's in Henrico, which is
pretty close
this side of Richmond, I think. I'm not real familiar with that area, but I'm going to try to do the double dip and go to the spring game and attend the induction ceremony if I can. It's just a lot of great people there, and you don't know who you're going to run into. Ran into so many people last year that I didn't expect to see, including an old friend of mine, one of the first people I met when I moved to Charlottesville back in the early 80s, Governor Allen, George Allen, whose law office was right behind the newspaper when I came to town. And I was drawn to him because of his dad, George Allen, the Redskins, legendary Redskins and NFL coach. And I used to go over to his office and just sit and talk football for hours on end. And we became friends and remain so to this day. But you just never know who you're going to run into at the Hall of Fame ceremonies.
What's in the hopper on JerryRatcliffe.com?
Well, I certainly will be following the Ryan Dunn news and all things transfer portal. Like I said, we check on that probably 30 times a day as to what's going on, and heavy spring football the rest of the week, and then hopefully we'll be able to have some time to delve into the rest of the spring sports from this weekend on.
Ryan Dunn, guys, is clear. I mean, it's going viral on social media. Jerry Ratcliffe will have maybe dot the I's and cross the T's on that.
Yep.
On the website. The Will Driscoll pool was fantastic, Hootie.
He's just a terrific guy. I
Yeah.
mean, he's so hardworking, and he's made a huge difference in the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. I know a lot of people aren't that familiar with it. I have been. I used to, back in the day, Media General used to sponsor the golf tournament, which was at that time held in Williamsburg, and I would take.
Which course?
I think it was Ford's Colony most of the time. It might have drifted off to another course at some point, but I was generally at Ford's Colony, and I was charged with taking some of our chief advertisers who were golfers for a weekend trip down to that event and entertain them. And we would always it's a captain's choice golf tournament. We would always have the meals and the social events, but the golf was always fun because you had your foursome, which was always a bunch of great guys, and we were always joined by a Hall of Famer in our group. So we would have a fivesome, and I remember playing one round with Lefty Driesell, which was one of the most memorable days on the golf course I've ever spent. And Ralph Sampson, just seeing him swing a golf club with like a 74-inch driver or something like that. And some other Hall of Famers. One of the guys whose name escapes me, Ken Willard, who was a star running back for North Carolina from Richmond, is in the Hall of Fame, and he was in our group. He played for the 49ers. And that particular year, Frank Quell, the Virginia legendary running back, was one of our advertisers I took. And it amazed me to see Quell, who most people look up to as a superstar in Virginia football history, how he was idolizing Ken Willard, who was one of his heroes when he was growing up, and to be able to play golf with him in that setting just made his day.
It's special.
It was special, and Willard at that point looked like he could still step out and play in the NFL. He still lifted weights and was a massive dude. I mean, it was unbelievable. But it's just if you've never been to a Hall of Fame ceremony, this would be a great year to go. There's tickets, like you said, you can still get them through tomorrow, just to see some of the locals go in and some of the other people. It's worth your time to go down and see it. And if you can't do that, then support their golf tournament over at Wintergreen. Who knows what Hall of Famer you might be linked up with in your captain's choice foursome.
There it is. Hootie Ratcliffe, guys. He set up the interview with Will Driscoll, the executive director of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. His website, jerryratcliffe.com. We're on it every day to get all Virginia sports news, knowledge, and information. Hootie, excellent show. Judah Wickower, thank you for running the technology,
He's
especially
the man.
with the interview via Skype. Flawlessly done, my friend. The I Love Seville show is up in 1 hour and 8 minutes at 12:30. So long, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hootie, Judah, that was excellent. The Skype.